In this explainer, we're digging into a really powerful personal account from a man named Pastor Joshua Lau. He's talking about the challenges his Christian community is facing in India. It's a complex story, for sure, so let's walk through his testimony together and see what we can understand from his perspective.
You know, what's so striking is that the pastor doesn't kick things off with his struggles. Nope. He starts with his deep, genuine love for his country, painting this picture of a beautiful nation that he is just incredibly proud to call home. But then, right after setting that beautiful scene, he completely flips the script. He explains that this very same country is also the backdrop for a growing and really difficult struggle for his community. And that contrast, well, that's right at the heart of his story. Okay, so here's how we're going to break down his account. First, we'll look at his view of India as a land of contrasts. Then we'll get into the specific, on-the-ground challenges he talks about. From there, we'll examine a specific law he hones in on, the wider battle for influence he describes, and we'll wrap up with his direct call for support.
All right, first up, this whole idea of India being a land of contrasts, a place that he sees as both beautiful and, at the exact same time, increasingly tough for his community to navigate.
He talks with such warmth about the nation's diversity, the stunning landscapes, the fact that you can find different languages and food in every single state, all the unique clothing. But for him, the most important part is the people, who he says are, in his words, very good and very loving.
And here is where that sharp contrast really comes into play. He claims that, despite this loving nature of the general population, there are specific groups pushing an agenda to make India a Hindu nation, and this, from his point of view, is creating an atmosphere that he can only describe as anti-Christian.
So let's move from that big picture view to what he says this actually looks like for people on the ground based on his own experiences.
Listen to this direct quote from his testimony. It's pretty shocking. He's describing a situation where pastors being arrested after Sunday services has become, for him, just a routine event. It's a really powerful way to show the severity of what he says he's witnessing.
And this is where you really see the day-to-day impact he's describing. He reports that simple social work, like feeding people, is suddenly looked at with suspicion. He says churches and even small prayer groups in homes are being shut down, and that it's getting really hard to just rent a space to meet. The bottom line, he explains, is that his community feels like they're being treated as criminals or even terrorists.
So you might be wondering, what's the legal tool being used here? Well, according to the pastor, it all comes down to one specific piece of legislation, the anti-conversion law.
Now, this is a really crucial point he makes. It's not just about the law itself, but how he claims it's being interpreted. He says that under this law, any act of charity, even something as simple as giving someone a meal, can be legally twisted and framed as an illegal attempt to convert them.
And he lays out this really daunting legal journey. He says once a case is filed, getting bail from a local court is practically impossible. You have to appeal to a higher court, and he claims that process alone will keep someone locked up in jail for at least 3 to 6 months before the case is even really looked at.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit. The pastor argues this isn't just about individual arrests. He sees it as part of a much wider, strategic battle for the hearts and minds of the Indian people.
What he points out here is fascinating. He describes what he sees as a new strategy from opposing groups. They're basically mirroring his community's own methods. He says where Christian groups do children's training, now so do they. He claims they use things like yoga to spread their ideology, and even alleges that some schools are being forced to teach from Hindu religious books. In his eyes, it's a clear battle for influence, and it's being fought everywhere, from community centers to classrooms.
And then he adds another layer to this, one that he says has gone digital. He reports that as soon as a case is filed against a pastor, their phone gets hacked, their emails are monitored, and their entire network of contacts is basically put under a microscope.
And all of this builds up to the whole reason he's sharing his story in the first place, to make a direct plea for support from the outside world.
His request is broken down into 3 pretty simple actions. First, he just asks for prayer, both for his community and for the nation of India. Second, he invites people to come and visit, just to be there and offer some encouragement in person. And finally, he says that even if you can't preach or speak publicly, just showing up to share support would mean the world to them.
And so we're left with this really profound question that stems from his one man's account. In a nation that's built on such incredible diversity, how is that delicate balance between faith, law, and culture actually defined? The pastor's certainly given us his answer. But how that balance is ultimately struck, well, that remains essential and very much an evolving question for modern India.